Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, former installation contractor and boutique store owner, bringing you a lifestyle lift every week. I want you to be able to run a business instead of owning a job, and we do that by providing you educational episodes every week with insights that you can immediately implement into your business through small steps to change how you're running to be more efficient, effective, and get to the goal you actually wanted when you started a business, which was probably to have more free time and make more money. And then you realized you had to wear 8,000 hats instead of just the one of, hey, I'm just a contractor and I do installs. And you found yourself spending time doing 8,000 other things besides what you actually wanted to do. And so there is a better way. And we are doing interviews every week with amazing individuals that have been there, done that, and they've built something to help them be able to live the life that they wanted. This week, we are going to be talking with Andrew Acker of Schluter Systems. He's the director of education. And one of the great things about Schluter is how much value they provide you as a contractor. And it makes me wonder why a lot of the other manufacturers in the industry have not stepped up to the level they have in the amount of classes that they provide to not only educate contractors, but help them better their businesses, whether it's by showing them how to present the value behind the installs they provide or the products that they use and how it's going to answer questions to the end user of the product. Because one of the things we're going to talk about here is I've titled this Stop Selling Installations. And what I know, if I asked a lot of you, what is it that you sell? You're going to tell me that you sell installations. And I'm going to tell you, you're dead wrong. You do not sell installs. That's not at all correct. And what you actually sell is you need to find a way to present value to the homeowner. If I gave you $100 bill and then I asked you what you would trade it for, you're going to tell me something that you value at more than $100. And I don't care if it's a Pokemon card. I really don't. If you have that much intrinsic value on a silly playing game card that's technically made for children, and I know they're worth lots of money these days and whatnot, and I'm probably showing, my age and generation and all of that, but you wouldn't trade it unless you felt it was worth more than the $100. And so when you're going to a homeowner and you're asking them for $5,000, $8,000, $15,000 for a shower, but all you can tell them is, well, I'm going to install the shower for you. I'm not giving you that much money. It's not worth it, because they don't understand what they're actually getting. So we're going to get into how to present value today and what that looks like. Before I have Andy introduce himself and we get into today's topic, I got a couple of quick ad reads to do from our sponsors, which thank you to all of them for helping support the show and get education out to the industry so that it can be better as a whole. If you're struggling to keep your schedule, forgetting to follow up with clients, are your books behind? Cronus Flooring Business Manager has the solutions you are looking for. Streamline your life, gain more freedom, and maintain control of your business. From scheduling to follow-up reminders, integration with QuickBooks, and producing quotes quickly, you can say goodbye to your business headaches. Visit cronosoft.com/academy today to schedule your demo for this all-in-one approach for flooring business organization. Cronus, fast relief for your flooring business headaches. The link is in the show notes, but it's KRONUSSOFT.com/academy. And Chesney and Victor will take great care of you over there and get you set up with a demo. And attention flooring professionals, elevate your craftsmanship with the finest tools and supplies from tiletools.com. From spacers to saws, we have everything you need for flawless tile installations. Plus, we offer top-notch customer service and fast shipping. As a special offer for Floor Academy listeners, use code FA10 at checkout to receive 10% off your next order. Don't settle for less. Visit tiletools.com today and experience the difference in quality and service that professionals trust. What I can say to that is that it's really nice not having to run out and purchase a bunch of stuff, let alone a lot of the times when you need some kind of specialty little item and you go to your local distributor, they don't have it. And so if you're planning ahead, having it come right to your doorstep, man, super nice these days. It's Tile Tools is going to be like the Amazon of tile stuff. And they'll take great care of you. All right, that's enough out of me. Andy, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. Who are you?
Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Who am I? Well, my name's Andy Acker. I'm the Director of Education for Schluter Systems here in North America. And that means I kind of run the show when it comes to all of our innovation workshops and a lot of the other trainings that we do online, our webinars, what we do at trade shows. If you ever come to surfaces or coverings or something like that, you'll come to the booth and watch the demos. So I kind of take care of all that stuff, and we do some internal training, ongoing training for people who actually work for Schluter. So yeah, that's who I am now. But prior to that, I was actually a tile contractor out in Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, mostly on the Berkeley, Oakland side of the Bay.
Okay.
I did that for 13 years with my own company. Where I was a C-54 licensed contractor. In the state of California, you need that kind of stuff to be legitimate. So I was that. And then the 7 years prior to running my own company, I was learning the trade. So being a Northern California guy, of course, that was all traditional mortar bed applications. So I'm an old mud guy from Northern California. So that's kind of my background. But now, yeah, I've been with Schluter Systems for quite a few years. Just celebrated my 27th anniversary with Schluter Systems. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, right on. I know I've been to Innovation 1 and 2. I've been to Innovation 1 and 2 both this year. Enjoyed them both very much. I love that you can go get, huge wealth of knowledge, not only about the products, but then you get to practically work with them as well. And I think that's a huge advantage. And so that's, if we're going to sit here and talk about value, that's value that Schluter's providing to contractors to allow them to better assist their prospective clients. But in part of that, the discussion always lends itself at those workshops. And this is one of the things I really like as myself as a guy that's into the business side of things, is that the discussion always comes up of how your products are going to present better value than other solutions that are potentially on the market. And I think that's probably where we should start this conversation is, again, like I said in the intro, if you ask an installer what they do, they're going to say they sell installations generally. And if that's all you have to sell, I think that's the wrong place to start. So, and we'll probably get into this too, but Schluter does now have a small business course, and one of the things behind that course is no. That's not what we're doing here. We're doing so many other things. It just so happens to be that you do installations, but there's other things that you can present and work with to provide value. So, Andy, why don't you take it away here for a minute, and I'll play off of what you got. But where do you see it and remember from being a contractor of like trying to present value and differentiate yourself and not just go and ask for $5,000 to install a shower, or, $500 for a backsplash. And it's just this exchange of services for money.
Yeah, that's a lot. What you just said, we could, we'll certainly riff off of that for a while, and that's great. Yeah, we started this innovation workshop back in 2001, and it was all about really two elements, which was why and then how. So the why was kind of the history of the industry and the history of installation practices. And then the how was, well, like you said, let's go play with the stuff. Let's go in and actually work with the materials and learn how to do it properly. But we learned that in the why part, why would you do this? We had a component that kind of was missing, not by design. Kind of stumbled into it and realized, yeah, we kept using this term business model. And we would get these stares from the people in the room going, what's that? Do I, do I have one? So we would have to kind of go into, yes, you have a business model. And one of the things you should be doing in a business model is looking for efficiencies, which ultimately are going to make you more profitable. So, yeah, thanks for that. That is why we decided, hey, we have to do something more businessy than
Mhm.
installing, right? Sure, we'll show you how to install our stuff and show you features and benefits and so forth, and then understand why is it important that you know how to do proper installations of any product, certainly in flooring in general, and then in tile, in a floor, in a shower, wherever you're going to put it. So I did look back, and several of the people who worked for Schluter, who came from the same place I did,
Mhm.
look back. Man, we wish we had known a lot of this stuff when we were running our own small business. I would have been more successful. I wouldn't have been afraid of that that word called profit, right?
Yeah.
It was a bit of an epiphany for many of us at Schluter to go, yeah, we need to do this. So let's start a business class, a couple of days long, and one of the slogans that came out of this thing, Kyle, I think you were actually at that class where uh, the one fella said it after I said it, and we were all so pleased. He goes, yeah, you're not installing tile for money. You're running a small business that happens to offer tile installation.
Mhm.
So that's one way to kind of get your heads wrapped around what you're doing to begin with. Then you get into what you were saying, which is how do we build these efficiencies and how do you set yourself apart from your competition? If all things are equal, why are they going to select you
Mhm.
over other mechanics or tradespeople that are in your community, in your market, that are really going to offer, well, if that's just it, the same thing? And it's like, no, it is how you sell yourself. I can recall getting on with Schluter Systems, and the guy who did my original interview is a sales manager, and I said I'm a little nervous because I've really never done an interview for a job because I've always been a contractor. And he says, well, I thought in contracting you do bidding all the time. I said, yeah, I do. He goes, well, aren't those all interviews? I'm like, oh my gosh, you were exactly
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I interview for jobs all the time. So I'd like your audience to think about that every time you go and encounter a new potential client. You are interviewing for a job with them. So
Yes.
what is your edge? What is your what is your competitive edge?
I,
So
I, I
yeah,
think that's a great question and a great mindset. I've talked about that on the show before of, if they're calling around and if the prospective client's doing their due diligence, they should be getting, at least three bids, if not upwards of five. And that's probably a little excessive, but I know it's done. But they're interviewing contractors. So why don't we think of it exactly like you said, right? I'm going to go interview the prospective client. Do they fit me? Do they fit my business model? Do they align with the values that I hold? And that's when business really started changing for me, and I was able to dial in and start not only selling higher quality projects at a higher value, but I was much happier with the projects that I was landing because it all worked better for my business and myself, but it worked for the client too because I was giving them exactly what they were looking for. Whereas I get it when you're starting out, like you want to take everything, and I don't blame you, right? You got to eat, so you got to start somewhere, but you have to start dialing in at some point. And so learning that it's an interview process and learning that it's if the only thing you can do is go and put a number on a piece of paper or a napkin or, I don't know, it's a leftover fast food bag in your truck that you're going to write something on and hand it to the homeowner. Like if we're going to get super stereotypical here, if all you can do is write like shower install $5,000 or carpet install 1,500, like if that's all you can do, then the only thing that that prospective client is going to see is a dollar to dollar difference between you and the next guy. And so when you're talking about building, what's your competitive advantage, I think that's where a lot of guys and gals get it wrong, is that they don't understand how to present it. And so homeowners really do think that it's apples to apples, when in fact, most of the time it is apples to oranges to nectarines when they're getting 3 bids. And the homeowners don't necessarily understand how to break it down unless you break it down for them. So you've got to leave them with something that they can use and look at, in my opinion, to remember all of the things that separate you from everybody else. Otherwise, at the end of the day, they're going to look at the bottom of this quote and say, well, this one's $5,000, this one's $7,000, and this one's $6,500. Well, I don't want to spend a lot of money. Let's go with the $5,000 one.
Right. And then, so what is it? It's interesting that in the sales and then the marketing segments of our business class, these are the discussions that we are having. Mm-hmm. We're like, how is it? What is it that you do better, or what? And you touched on it. You're not just getting interviewed; you are interviewing the potential client too, because there has to be a match. You do have to have a shared vision, if you will. You do have to say, I get what you want. Do you understand what I'm trying to provide for you? Mm-hmm. I can recall having people tell me, you made us go through this process of having more than just your bid. And we never really understood why you wanted that when you came so highly recommended from a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, whoever it was. Mm-hmm. Why make you do that? But and I said, well, why did you actually have me? Because people would confide in me after I was on the job for a while. They'd say, you weren't the cheapest. And I say, well, that's it. How? Why is it that you selected me anyway? I said, well, we really felt like we were comfortable with you. You talked like you knew what you were doing, and you knew how to do it, and you actually went through the processes you were using and why. So we just felt very comfortable with you, and we just knew that you were going to provide good work. And one of them actually said, I said something to you to try to throw you off and to challenge you a bit, and you responded perfectly. And I said, what was that? And the one homeowner, she said, well, I said I was very picky. And you, without missing a beat, looked at me and smiled and said, we're going to get along great because I'm picky too. And she said, I was just sold when you did that, because I knew that we were going to have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. I think your listener should also think about each one of your jobs, each project as a little mini relationship.
Oh yeah.
That's I think that is really important stuff. But yes, you should interview them too to make certain there were times when I drove away from a measure, an on-site measure, and I just knew it in my heart. I'm like, they're not my client. They're just mm-hmm. We're not gonna match up. Matter of fact, I'm gonna call them tomorrow and just say thanks for the opportunity, but I'm going to decline to bid on this because I just don't think we have the same goals. So.
That's a great point. It's okay to tell somebody you don't want to bid on their project even after looking at it. It may seem like it's a good fit with a pre-screened phone call or going back and forth via text, but right. You get out there, you meet them in person, you look it all over, you've got time invested. It's okay to bow out, right? If you don't think it's going to be a good fit, or you pick up on something that you want to put that PETA tax on, but even that's not really going to make it worthwhile for you. It's okay to tell somebody like, hey, I'm not interested. And here's the thing is that if they want to go and leave you a bad, 1-star review somewhere and sit there and say, oh, he came out, he looked at my job and he wouldn't even provide me with a bid. Who looks crazier? The guy who professionally bowed out saying, I don't think we're going to be a good fit for each other and that I'm not right for your project, or the crazy person that's leaving a review saying they came out, looked at my stuff, and then wouldn't give me a bid. Who's crazier, right? Like it's going to help you look better to other prospective clients. And so I don't even think that's a problem. Like don't be afraid. The other part of it is I think a lot of times when you're starting out and you don't really know how to present value yet, and you know, I haggle everything. I'm just that guy. I probably should have been born in like an Asian country, and because I love to do it. I'll go to, you know, I was in one of the box stores recently as I'm working on my dad's house, and I'd be buying some bigger stuff, and I'll go up to the counter and be like, "Can I get 10% off?" And they're like, "All right." All you got to do is ask. Like they all have power to just kind of do it. But I'll go in McDonald's or Starbucks and start haggling over stuff. I don't care. Like the worst they're going to tell me is no, right? And so I don't get mad at homeowners that want to haggle with me. But I got mad at myself when I was on a project and I knew I should have been making more money. And so don't be afraid to stand firm in your prices, because one of the, like I've told the story before, one of the bids that I went out early on, they haggled me on the price. I agreed, and I went and picked up the deposit check, and I was like, let me ask you a question. If I would have stuck firm to my prices, would you still have hired me and I'd be picking up a deposit check for slightly more right now? And they said, yeah. And I said, cool. And I walked out. I was pissed. Like I wasn't mad at them. I was pissed at myself. But it was a good lesson in that had I stood firm, I can still win work. And it's probably, but it's probably because I was able to go in and demonstrate a knowledge that I had of the products and how to get the project accomplished that other contractors didn't have. And so they felt more comfortable with me. But they also probably knew that they don't get what they don't ask for. And I probably showed some inexperience in other places. And so they were able to take advantage of that at the time. And that's, wow. You chalk it up to lesson learned.
Yeah, that's a great story. And that is a great lesson. You really need to stick to your guns. If you have a little wiggle room, you know, maybe you use it if you really want the job that bad. But right now, the current situation in the tile industry is there's a lot more work than there are workers to do it. So we do have a bit of an advantage right now as far as you know, what we can charge for a job, how we can be a little picky about who we work for. You said something earlier, Kyle. I do want to respond to. You do a bit of the interview over the phone when you first encounter a new client. They're asking you questions, but you're asking them questions to see if it is a fit. So it should be fairly rare that you actually end up at their home or on a job site and then you walk away not feeling good about it. That should all happen in those earlier phone calls.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I know some people just come out and say, well, you know, what's your budget for this project? I never felt comfortable doing that, but I would ask about, you know, what's their vision for this finished product and what kind of tile are they looking at using, and what is this? Is this going to be just a remodel of a hall bath, or are you going for a primary bathroom that's going to be your spa and retreat? You know, you're getting ideas about their budget. If they start naming high-end brands for plumbing and cabinetry or the flooring even, a lot of time I ask, because they'd say, well, where would be a good place to go look for tile? And so I'd say, well, in order for me to really not waste your time, let me know a little bit about what your vision is for this project, because I'll send you just to those showrooms. I won't waste your time going to others. So that type of. So yeah, you can get a lot of good information from somebody, a prospective client, before you ever set foot across their doorway.
Well, I think that's the key here. So in this value discussion, the questions that you're proposing asking them is as they ask us about what we can do and when we can do it and how much is it going to cost and right. And I'm responding, trying to get like you said, right. Tell me about the project. What are you looking to accomplish? You know, if I can find out the best thing that I heard is, you know, Trask Bergerson, a friend of the show, and he's been on it. His thing to me one time is he was like, businesses solve problems. That's all they do. Doesn't matter what you do. If you can find a problem to solve, then you could start a business, right? So there's people that pick up dog poop. What's the problem? I don't want to pick up the dog poop in my yard. So there's other people that are willing to go and do that, right? I got a problem. I don't want dog poop in my yard. I can give this guy money and he'll come and do it for me. So once you start looking at it like that, and you can understand that Mrs. Jones, right? What is it that she's actually asking for? Because it's not necessarily a new shower. There's something else that's wrong. And I think that's where your questions are going, right? They're not only geared at trying to figure out like where are they at budget wise and trying to find that out in a more subtle way, but what's she actually upset about, right? Did the plumbing break and the shower just fell apart? And so like they have to fix it because of that? Was there some sort of, is the old one leaking and they have to do it? Does she just hate the way it looks and they bought a new house, or have they lived there 20 years and it's just dated, right? Like what's the actual complaint? And once I understand the complaint, I can start building a package that fits your needs so that I'm giving you everything you want instead of just saying, that's $5,000. Well, let me actually meet your needs, right? Oh, you don't like standing in it? I can put a bench in. Let's give you a nice place to sit. You want to be able to shave your leg? Okay, we can put a little shelf in the corner that you can put your foot up on. Oh, it's cold in here. Well, okay, we can get you some heated flooring. Like, what are the complaints? What are the actual objections to the current install? And then fix all of them. And now you're providing value. And I think that's a lot of the time that's missed, is you go in and you're not. I've had a contractor come and bid. I wanted a bunch of subfloor replaced because I didn't want to do it myself. The guy came over and wouldn't shut up about the 8,000 other projects he's done. And then he gave me a price real quick before he left, after like yapping my ear off for like 30 minutes talking himself up. Never called him, never acknowledged him back. I didn't care. He didn't tell me how he was going to solve the problem or fix it. He was just like, yeah, I could do that. It's going to be this much. And then he yapped about stuff I didn't care about for 30 minutes. That's what a lot of us do when we go in a house, is you start talking yourself up. I don't care about you. I care about the problem I have and I want it solved, right? Like we're selfish in that way as human beings. Like we like to talk about ourselves. So let the homeowner talk about themselves. Stop talking about you and your contracting business.
You just hit on two sales 101s, didn't you? Right there. That you need, Kyle, when you attended the workshop, the business work, remember the first exercise we did on first morning of day one? It was fill out your business model, a business model canvas. And when we went through all of the things you would do, one of the key activities and one of your value add propositions was, I said, this should be in everybody's canvas. You are a solution provider.
Yes.
This is who you are. What you just got done discussing is exactly that. You need to be a solution provider. And you do that through, and again, sales 101, listen to their pain points. If you close your mouth and open your ears, that's another sales, right? You have one mouth and two ears, use them in that ratio, right? You should be listening twice as much as you're talking. They will tell you their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and their pain points. You just have to stand there and let them, because you're right. People love to talk about themselves, but you have to you got to kind of stop yourself from doing that, because in this situation, you're really listening to them because you are going to serve them better. And then you cannot offer them everything they need. You can actually offer some things that they didn't even consider. And now you're not only a solution provider, you're giving them something more than they ever thought they could have. And now, how have you set yourself apart from your competition? This is all value add stuff that you have to have in the back of your head when you go in and encounter these people, either on the phone or you show up on the job site or their home if it's a remodel in a homeowner's house. But yeah, listen to their pain points, be the solution provider, and And that is definitely part of your business model that you do every single time you encounter somebody.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
We'll get into it. I want to talk about just being able to have solutions here in a minute. I'm going to interrupt us. We got a couple ad reads here real quick from some more sponsors. The rumors are true. GoBoard Pro is available and approved for steam showers. GoBoard Pro was developed with the pro contractor's ease of project workflow in mind. Panel sized at 48 by 64 inches will limit waste on your project, require less seams, meaning less sealant is needed, and best of all, you can space those beautiful blue GoBoard fasteners out to 12 inches without requiring washers. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for all the product details. Schluter Systems is all about providing products and systems that ensure durable, functional, and beautiful tile installations. With an emphasis on education through their nationwide workshop program for professionals, the goal of the company is to offer innovative solutions to the tile industry that solve common challenges faced by installers. Their product line includes over 6,000 items, including tile trims, uncoupling membranes, floor heating systems, waterproof building panels, shower systems, and thin-set mortars. For more information or to register for a workshop, visit schluter.com. And if you're lucky, maybe Andy shows up to one. If you can find a Mind Your Business course, like yes, Schluter's a sponsor currently of the show, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about it in the past of being able to go to this thing. It's an absolutely awesome class. If you enjoy the content you get here, even as an established business individual and somebody that would be doing, multiple millions a year in revenue, it's a good way to spend 2 days. Just not only as a refresher, but to go and interact with your peers in the industry. And they got a really good thing going on. So I can't say enough about if you're a carpet guy and you want to learn some stuff and you can find your way into a Mind Your Business course, I would go do it. But, just going and attending one of their workshops, I think you could see it's an experience. They take great care of you, and there's tons of value in what is offered and what's learned. So even if you just want to get an idea for maybe how your part of the industry could step it up, attending a workshop isn't a bad idea in my opinion. So that's my plug on that. We are back, Andy, and I want to talk about this solutions kind of thing. And so I think I'm a dork, man. I love going and learning about stuff, right? And so I attended the Innovation One workshop before I really knew that I was going to have some tile installs coming up, and then I knew I had the tile installs coming up for remodeling my father's house, and I went and attended the other workshop just so I was more familiar with the products. But in general, I just like going and to demo days held at local distribution houses, or getting to know all of my local reps that I can. And so if one product's not available, I know that I can go get X, Y, and Z and have another solution. The last thing that I want to happen as a contractor is someone contacts me and says, I have this problem. And I say, I can't help you. And I think Schluter's done a great job of being able to provide a ton of solutions. But in general, even for you as a contractor, I'm sure you had brand loyalty as to this is my preferred way to do it. But I think you're savvy enough that you had other things lined up in your back pocket of, well, if I encounter this, I've got this ace up my sleeve. And I think that changes how you can run a business and how you interact with clients.
Yeah, I think that's important. That one thing that we try to teach, and when I embarked on starting this program over 20 years ago, talking to the president of Schluter at the time, I said, I think it's important that we get everybody a Tile Council of North America installation handbook, because I think one of the true values that people can bring to the table as a professional tile installer is to actually have the tool of evaluation. In other words, not only evaluate the job that they might be doing, but understand how to evaluate it, and then maybe even evaluate new products.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Something that I kind of swerved into when I was first out on my own, I did, as you said, I would attend any seminar that any sales rep put on at any of the distributors that were around my house, and certainly where I bought a lot of my stuff. Whatever they had to say, I always came away with a couple of great nuggets of wisdom, and I learned something, and I felt that that was helping me set myself apart. The other thing you said, which I think I'd like to second, is if you don't have your sales rep's number in your phone on your speed dial, uh, and that's just for the products you use every day.
Mm-hmm.
Even the other ones you meet, you get to know these people. That's what they're there for. I know at Schluter, the salespeople spend a ton of their time consulting.
Yeah.
They get phone calls all throughout the day, and they want to be there to do that. So you should be able to be equipped with the tools of evaluation. Go in and look at a job and say, what are not only the pain points of the potential customer, but what are the potential problems I could have that I need to address when I go and do the install. The client is looking at design. You're looking at design and function.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this? What environment is this? How does it need to function? Sure, I should look at the design and make certain it meets all the aesthetic elements that the customer wants. But what they don't understand is that this thing's got to work. Like we're talking about a lot about showers. You're dealing with water now. You better know how to deal with water. Depending on the products you're using, what kind of system are you going to apply, and then stick with it. So yes, you should be able to go in there and evaluate any job and go, okay, here's the potential stuff that could be a problem. This is how I'm going to address it. I found that I started doing that out loud in front of potential clients. I did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
homeowner remodel, and they'd stand there while I was like literally measuring and sketching out their bathroom or whatever it was. And I say, oh, well, over here, I'm going to do it this way because this is the best way, because this is the best practice in the industry to do this. I'll apply this here and I'll use this here because this is going to be, this potential. And they just sit there and go, wow, this is amazing. And I guess I had to try to do that because I was trying to sell myself. Just personally, when I set out on my own, I looked very youthful. I didn't age until not later. So I ring the doorbell or knock on the door, and they'd open the door, and then people would literally look around me, look down their walkway to see if like my dad was coming, or something like that. And they'd go, "You're Andy?" And I'd say, "Yeah, hi, how are you? I'm Andy." And they'd be like, "Oh, okay, well, come on in." And it would be funny, Kyle, within a half hour of being in their house, one of them would have to ask, "So how old are you exactly?"
Uh-huh.
I looked that young. So I knew I had that extra hill to climb.
Mm-hmm.
That was an extra obstacle that I felt I needed to get over. So to let these people know that I was a master of my trade and highly skilled and highly knowledgeable, so that I could evaluate each job and say, okay, this is going to be a potential, so this is how I address these. Here's something else we need to be mindful of. So let's make certain we address that properly with the right methods and materials. And so this is another way to set yourself apart. But yeah, this is where you need to be as a contractor, as someone who's, again, running a small business that offers tile installation. So
Yeah, I love that you're saying that as you went through it, you were kind of working your way through the tear out and the install, and figuring out like, okay, I got to do this here and that there, and that's going to require this product, so I could use this solution and do it. And they're looking at you like, man, there's a lot that goes into this. And I think that's exactly it. I would kind of do the same thing. And what I would recommend is that if you're sending something, if your quote, when you send it off to the homeowner or present it to them in person, is just saying, shower install, niche install, bench install, right? And then it kind of has some pricing behind it, or there's just a price at the bottom if you don't line item everything. I don't really get it. I just don't. And so one of the things that I would do is I wrote up like really long like project scopes, and it would detail every step I was going to do, right? And so with me installing the plastic floors and whatnot, I constantly had to undercut door jambs. That went into every single scope of work for projects that I had to do that on. And it seems silly to list out that like I'm going to undercut your door jamb, but it's something that needed to be done, right? I was going to tear out the carpet, the padding, the tack strip. I was then going to grind the floor clean from any contaminants so that I could apply whatever thing I needed to apply and it would actually adhere properly, right? But like sitting there describing not only all of these little steps, now it doesn't seem to have as much of an effect. Like, okay, now I understand why I'm paying so much, when the other guy just came in and was like, yeah, I can install it and it's this much. Well, now it looks funny that he's so much cheaper, especially once I can get into saying like, you know, I would go in and I would pull quotes out of the installation instructions, and it would say floor tolerance has to be this range. And I would state that, you know, I can't determine, you know, what the scope of work's going to be until I can actually see it, because I don't know what your subfloor looks like until I remove the old flooring, but the manufacturer requires this. And so we can evaluate it at that time, or just anything you have, right? I would be pulling out that, you know, for wood installs, you have to maintain your house between X and X temperature and X and Y humidity level. And so Andy's saying that he's, you know, Schluter's out there providing everybody with a TCNA handbook. So you can start pulling from that and saying, you know, here's this thing and why we have to do it. And here's the ANSI standard behind it and what we're meeting. And I'm going to use this product that meets this thing. And you start describing that stuff. And that's really when you get into this value proposition that we're talking about, of you're describing not only their project, but you're showing them the how and the why behind it. And so, you know, your $7,500 shower compared to somebody's $5,000 shower actually makes a lot more sense, because you've shown them why yours will be successful.
And even if you shared all those how and whys and the things that you're going to do that potentially other bidders are not, they won't remember that. Their head's spinning. You're
Correct.
using terminology that you're used to. It's your work. It's familiar to you. They don't know this stuff. So to put it in your bid that you are going to do these extra things, then they'll recall the conversation and go, oh yeah, I remember Kyle said that. Oh yeah, I remember Andy said he was going to do that because this was important and so forth. I can recall having a conversation with several tile contractors that had been to our workshops and were kind of asking for encouragement or coaching on, you know, starting to apply some of these principles. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you know, there's nothing wrong with having someone go, well, that's funny. You want to do it that way. And we've got a couple other bids and they never mentioned that they're going to do that. And I said, well, you know what you should do? You should actually say something like, well, that's interesting that they wouldn't do that because that is the industry standard. And I can show you it right here, chapter and verse in the tile installation handbook, that is an industry standard and a requirement. For instance, putting natural stone over a wood frame home, you know, that requires 2 layers of structural panel flooring, like OSB or plywood, not one in a backboard. And so a lot of times you get the job just because you called into question the other people and said, why did they not include this? This is actually a requirement. It's industry standard. I would actually question, why didn't they know this? Why isn't it in their bid? It's certainly in mine because I am, again, educated in my field, in my craft. This is my trade. I've spent the time to actually have the knowledge that I need to do the best job that I need to do for myself, for my reputation, and for the longevity of your job. You don't want to do this again, do you?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is important that you do set yourself apart and use the industry standards and have the education to go in there and feel confident enough to go, gee, how did the other people that bid on this not know about that? That I would wonder why they're ignorant of that fact that that's the industry standard. So
Yes.
I know it seems a little rough and a little cutting, but what you're trying to do is paint a picture to these potential clients that, hey, I'm your guy. I am the go-to person and the expert in my trade in your community. So yeah, I will do this and I will do it right the first time.
Yeah. No, I love that you said make sure you're presenting it in the quote like I kind of detailed out, because that's what I found is I was spitting so much gobbledygook out during the, in-person consult, but they couldn't ever remember everything I said, and it's because
No,
I was giving them so much, and they don't understand flooring, and they shouldn't have to, right? The assumption when someone calls you is that you're a professional because you put your shingle out and said, I can do this. So it's automatically assumed on their end that you're a professional and you're going to do it right. Sadly, that's not the case, and you're going up against a bunch of people that aren't professionals and can't present themselves that way. But I guess the switch of this, like the reverse, is if you're actually going and hearing people out, and you are figuring out what their problem really is, and then you're writing out detailed scopes of work that go over everything and really explaining why you're the expert and the most qualified in the area. And yes, you're more expensive, but there's a reason why, and you're using premium materials and you're putting a better warranty on it and all this stuff, and you're still losing bids, and you keep being told you're too expensive, and it's just not going to work. You got the wrong clientele. And so I think a lot of people get frustrated by, oh, I can't win any bids, and they always want somebody cheaper. Well, who are you marketing to, right? Because just because you can present it properly, doesn't mean you're presenting it to the right person.
Kyle, I don't know if you remember, I said this in that workshop you were in, and you're right. We hold like 300 innovation workshops a year, and only about 14 mind your business. They're kind of by demand, and we gather up people who are like-minded that want this type of training before we put them on. But nonetheless, something that we actually get into in these workshops is, yeah, you might need to find, and it might take you a little time to establish the clientele that you want. I brought it up that I didn't do a whole lot of work in the community I lived in because I could afford to live there. I could not afford to live where my clients lived.
Yeah.
Right. Then there weren't a lot of people in my community that could afford me. So I actually had to take my craft to more affluent communities that were looking at higher end and that could afford me and wanted to. And then it was on me. It was on my convincing them that, yeah, what I was doing for them, I was worth it. Because no, you don't need to know about how to do proper installation. I do. I just need to assure you that I do. And you just can sit back and go, we feel really comfortable having this man, this woman in our house. They know what they're doing. They made that clear to us. Even in the bidding process, it was all professional. We can see what they're bringing to the table over the other ones. And that'll be your clientele. That's who you want to work for.
So you bring up an interesting point, and I know the answer for me. I want to know the answer for you. You mentioned that you were having to go to like more affluent neighborhoods than what you actually lived in. When you started how long did you run your business for before you could actually afford your own services?
I'd say it was at least 3 to 4 years of me establishing my business. As you said earlier in this podcast, you talked about, this doesn't happen overnight, and it takes you a while, and you take all the work you can get just because you want to stay busy. And many people start out that way, and I get it. I think everybody gets it. That it's like when you're trying to establish your name, there's two things that you can do wrong, which is take too cheap work, but also don't hone your skills, your sales, your marketing, your convincing, your knowledge. the way that you hold yourself throughout the entire bidding process so that you can start working into the work that you want. So yeah, I'd say 3.5, maybe 4 years before I was really starting to go, I'm making enough money that I can afford to have somebody work on my house, which I would
Hmm.
never do. I've always done everything myself. I grew up in the trades, by helping my dad and carpenter and all that. But yeah, but it took a long time before. And this was the San Francisco Bay Area, and there were plenty of affluent communities, and it takes you a
Hmm.
while to get your foot in. But once I did, man, then just like now, I was just turning down work, not because I didn't want to do it, but I just didn't have time, and I didn't fit their time frame on when they wanted to
Hmm.
get it done.
Well, so I think
So
that's an interesting thing is that, well, let me ask the a follow up, right? So how long did it take you to convince yourself that you could sell work for more than what you could afford?
I actually never did. I had to have another friend who worked for me for a while, then went out on his own. And we were, met up one afternoon on way home from the job site. And he just looked at me straight in the face and said, "You're too cheap. You're not charging enough. You can charge more." And I'm like, "How do you know?" And he goes, "Because I do. And you train me, and I'm doing the exact same quality work and doing the same thing. And I'm charging more than you and getting plenty of work." And I'm like, man, that stung the whole way home. I'm just like, oh, I was seething.
Yeah.
What? What? So yeah, so someone else. I'm not smart enough, Kyle, to come to that conclusion on my own. I had to have another, colleague say, "You need to charge more, dude. You do
Yeah.
really nice work. You're worth more. You need to make, and you're working in the right community. So go for it." And I did find a water level, and people are, well, how do you know when you're too much? Well, when you don't have enough work out in front of you, when
Yeah.
your schedule is not booked out too far, then you've got to try to find your water level, but at least peek down the road and see what you can do. You might find yourself that a lot of people on this that are listening to this are probably going, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. Well, don't sell yourself short, because as you said earlier, there's nobody to get mad at but yourself when you leave the job and go, dang, I could have been a little more profitable on that one.
Yeah.
And again, profit's not a dirty word. You have a lot of things
Nope.
to fund when you're running a small business. Think about your future. Think about your financial stability. Are you providing for a family, or
Hmm.
some other group relies on you? Whatever that looks like, don't be afraid, and check it out. Just see what you can do. And if you only got work that's a few weeks out, you're like, oh boy, I'm losing a lot of bidding. And keep track of your bidding and see what is my success rate. What's my close rate? Remember that, Kyle?
Oh yeah.
People were bringing it up all the time at the workshop. My close rate's 95%. I'm just like, wow, okay.
Be more expensive.
Yeah, yeah, almost, right?
Unless you got like 100 crews, you should be more. Even with 100 crews, if your close rate's 95%, you should be more expensive.
Yeah,
But
I
no,
believe.
they're great points. It's I think that's one of the hardest things to get over though, is that we love to look at us and be like, well, I couldn't afford it, so I wouldn't pay it. Well, you're not selling to you. You're selling to someone else, and they're going to pay what they're willing to pay. So go sell to them. Don't sell to yourself. And like it's hard to get over that. Well, I think once you can get over that, like the next turning point for me was, okay, I learned how to start selling at a higher level and I started making money. But then, yeah, that day that I kind of looked at my bank account and I was like, oh man, I could buy a floor for myself. Like, wow, like I've made it.
That's a
there's
great point. I love that question. I'm glad you posed that to me. That was really, yeah. I think everyone on this podcast should be going, yeah. Well, have I gotten to the point where I can afford me?
correct. If
Yeah,
it's okay to not be able to afford you, that's what you have to understand. Like that's what we're talking about. If you can go present actual value and you deliver high end work, it doesn't make sense to sell to yourself usually. Like look, I bought I live in I got a nice decent house. It's worth way more than it should be in my opinion, and I was able to buy it at a very fortunate time. But I've worked in this neighbor. I worked twice in my own neighborhood. There's 152 units in it. I've done two of them for neighbors, and they only did it because they knew me. They knew I wouldn't screw it up, but I was definitely more than they wanted to spend. I normally would not have been the guy, and most other people in here would just not be able to afford me. But that was one of my advantages in living in this house and not moving when I started making money, was that my personal overhead was so low that I was able to focus on, okay, I can buy this tool, I can invest here, I can invest in this, I can go do these things, I can pay down my debt. Like, it gave me a competitive advantage, but that didn't mean that I wasn't worth more just because I lived in a certain part of town and was able to, I had to look at what I was actually putting out, and overcoming that is a really big hurdle for people. But then realizing you can, like, you feel like you've made it when you can afford it, I guess. And so Andy's right. Like, don't sell yourself short. Figure it out, right? You got to start somewhere. I think the thing I always say is, if you're closing a bunch of stuff and you're staying pretty busy and your close rate's like 50, 60, 70%, raise your prices 10% for the next 10 bids. See what happens. If you win enough to stay busy, go another 10%. Like, until you start losing everything and you're not staying busy, like, I would keep going higher, because what do you have to lose? Like, the thing that sucks the most is exactly what Andy pointed out, was he was kicking his own butt all the way home when his buddy told him, I'm charging more than you and you trained me. Then you start looking back and you're like, how many projects have I done, right? He's selling a backsplash for $250, $300 more than me. I've been doing this 10 years. I average, 50 backsplashes a year. Oh man, that's so much money. Like, you start adding that up and you really start kicking yourself in the butt.
Yeah, you're like, I could have funded my retirement. I could start that capital money that I was going to put aside for a new piece of equipment that would even better my deliverables. I mean, think about your deliverables. What is it that you are delivering to that customer, and what is the value there? As you said, if you're way booked out, yeah, you probably have a little wiggle room to jack up your price. And again, you're not gouging, you're not taking advantage. Obviously, the market can bear it. And I bet you have expenses. You're not going to go, make it rain in Las Vegas for that extra money. You're going to fund something that's important to you and your future. Mm-hmm. So you're running a small business. It's not cheap to run a legitimate business. There'll be people out there that are fly by night and they can do it much cheaper. Again, they're probably not doing the work you're doing. So as long as your deliverable is high quality, there's no reason to give it away.
For sure. And I don't think that there's now it left me. No, I don't even know where I was going to go. That's great. I love it when that happens.
That's so profound, it left you speechless. Wow.
Yes. I'm that good. No, this is just pretty standard operating procedures around here. I guess it's a matter of, if you can find people that value you, then, that's what I wanted to say. You can't go back, right? I say this all the time. Like, you can't go back and ask Mrs. Jones 20 years later and be like, I need knee surgery now, I'm going to need an extra $1,000. Like, you can't go back and get the money. So you might as well ask for it now. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? That was it, right? You're talking about charging more and you're not price gouging or anything. You're not putting a gun to anyone's head. You're selling a service, and whatever value someone puts on that, right? If you tell them that it's $10,000 and somebody else says it's $5,000, but they agree to your 10, did you price gouge? Not if you deliver what you think is a $10,000 product to them and they agreed, right? You didn't make them sign the contract to go with you. They decided they valued it at $10,000 because of how you presented it. You didn't do anything wrong. You're running a for-profit business. If you started a business and you don't want to make money, I don't know why you started a business. It doesn't make sense to me. We're all in it to make money. But hopefully that furthers some other ambition you have, right? It's not necessarily about the money. It's about what I can build with it, right? How can I take care of my family? What can I provide for them? What can I provide for myself? How can I go and have a relaxing vacation after busting my butt 50 weeks a year and enjoy myself? Like, that's what it's about. And so I think a lot of people get hung up on like, again, it's like, oh, I couldn't afford it. Who cares? Like, does that means you're too expensive because you can't afford it? I can't afford a Lamborghini, but I don't think someone that buys one's an idiot. Like, I think that they have more money than I do and they can afford a luxury item like that. But that just tells me that's who I want to go sell to. They got disposable income.
I'd come home from a job and my wife would go, "What's the house like?" I said, "Honey, we can't even afford the window coverings in this house. But that's where I want to work.
Mm-hmm.
That my caliber of work fits in that house. The way that I run my business fits in that house, and those are my clientele. I've got make a list of everything that you need to cost out. You just said something interesting. Here we are in early July. How do you fund your vacation? Because most of us, when we don't work, we're not generating any money. So that meant you needed to have a little bit of a nest egg for your vacation week or weeks that you take. Now, where does that money come from? When you need a new piece of equipment, a lot of our stuff that we use doesn't last forever. What's the time frame on that when you need to replace that? Whether it's a tool for work or your transportation or whatever it is. And we do this in the workshop too. Let's make a list of all of our expenses. What does it take us to deliver what our product? What does it really cost to deliver the product? There's two key elements to a bid, right, Kyle? We go through this all the time.
Yeah.
There's to do the job, to run the project, and then there's a cost to run your business. And when you add all those up, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not price gouging out all of my expenses that it takes me to run this and have something for the future and, and whatever your plans are. So yeah, and again, the whole key to this thing, Kyle, and I just can't stress this enough. You got to deliver a quality experience, not just the product that's done when you walk away. That's a lot longer than it took you to do it. But the whole process that you took the client through should have been positive, pleasurable experience from day one all the way through. That's what you're delivering.
Totally agree. That's really what it comes down to, is how do I make you feel comfortable as you pay me to destroy your home and your life? That's really what we're doing, is we're walking in and we not only destroy their home, but we upset their day-to-day routine. And so if you can make that a pleasurable experience, you will win. You are absolutely correct. The other thing you're bringing up is talking about the pricing. I think that was one of the most profound things for me at the class. Was I liked watching, you had everybody price out showers. And so, there's 20 people in there and they're from all over the country. And I was like, the not only within the small group of like having to put the shower together were you having issues, but then even I think we ended up with like 6 different total quotes, and there was thousands of dollars range between them. And it was interesting to see how everyone kind of has like a different business model on what kind of margin they're going to put on the materials, what they think labor's worth, and it's fascinating. And then you start talking with people and you're like, nah, I charge this. And they're like, I couldn't get that. I'm like, well, why not? Like, go find somebody different to sell to. And like, okay, yes, I get it. There are slight regional differences, but if Ford can sell a truck for the same amount countrywide, why can't you sell a shower? What's the difference? At the end of the day, what's really the difference? So for my solution is always just go find different clientele. If the clientele won't give you what you want, go find different clientele. And if that requires moving, I'd find a way to move. That's my suggestion. Go work somewhere that you can actually be happy.
Yeah. How far are you willing to drive to get to the people who value your service? It's a good question to ask yourself. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was always an interesting exercise, and always is, to have that bidding process where we break into small teams, go through the bidding, material list, and then labor, how many days, how many hours of labor it's going to take, what is your cost, what run an overhead to make certain you put in your overhead costs, and then a profit for yourself as the business owner. You
Yep.
know, here in every bid, and yeah, people always respond to that in a positive way. And most of the remarks we find on the surveys, they found that that was a very much an eye-opening experience to work with other people. Like you said, they could be from halfway across the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought that that would be a lot. They went, wow, I really enjoyed that exercise, and I learned a lot through going from that exercise. So yeah, I think everybody should sit down and just really make certain the components of their bid are labor, materials, overhead, and then profit. There's your four elements. Should be in every bid every time.
Yep.
So, and then how many people did we find, Kyle, that that in profit they wrap up a bunch of other stuff that actually uh, is overhead,
Mm-hmm.
is not associated with the project, but associated with running their business. In other words, their indirect costs, and they just let it kind of get siphoned out of their profit. It's like, well, no, then it
Yep.
wasn't. Those were indirect costs that you should have accounted for. So, yeah, people love that exercise,
Yeah.
but I think everybody needs to be fully aware of that they're running a business and it costs money to run a legitimate business.
That it does. It is not. It's not cheap. It is not cheap to run a profitable business, but it's that's okay. You can charge for it. I want to mention, go to flooracademypod.com/files. Get the business budgeting worksheet. Right, Andy's sitting here talking about figuring out your overhead, knowing what it does. The beautiful thing about the spreadsheet I created, it asks you how many days a year you want to work, and then you tell it how much you want to make a year, and then you start putting in your overhead costs of, how much is your truck, how much is your laptop, how much is your insurance, all of these different things. And it asks you how long those things will be, like how many years of service those things will be. So if you buy a trailer for $5,000 and you tell it that you're going to have it for 10 years, then it averages it out to, it's only $500 a year, and you want to work, let's say 250 days a year. So that's $2 a day that you got to add into your cost to afford a trailer in 10 years, right? And so it breaks all this stuff down. And what Andy's talking about is a lot of people figure out, okay, well, then I'm just going to add $50,000, but then they start paying advertising costs, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to, that's going to come out of that 50 now, and that's going to come out of my profit, right? So the way the spreadsheet works is it asks you all these questions and figures out how much you actually need to be making a day. Then it does the question of, well, now how much profit do you want, right? We've covered all your overhead. Now how much profit do you want to add on top of that? And so then you start playing with that number, and you get to yourself to a day rate. And then you kind of, you know what it's going to cost you to operate per day for the amount of days you want to work per year, right? If you want to if it's going to cost you $150,000 a year to run your business, right, and pay yourself a salary and stuff, and you want to work one day a year, you can go look for a $150,000 job to get done in one day. Can you find it? Maybe, right? You might be able to find some rich folk that are going to pay you $150,000 for a backsplash. I don't know. It's probably out there. But, you can be a little more realistic and figure out what it looks like to work, 230, 250 days a year, and base your numbers on that. And then if you want to get into square footage pricing, then you can do time studies and figure out how long tasks actually take you, so that you can figure out what your wall rate should be, what your floor rate should be, how long did it actually take you to install a floor heating system and prep the floor, and what, like, you can actually, if you know what you want to make per day to hit the amount of profit and salary you need in overhead, then you can figure out how much to charge per task if you want to break it down that way. The square footage pricing model is broken until you actually know what it costs you to run your business. That's a huge problem in this industry.
I think to try to maybe wrap up a lot of what you just said, and I know I kind of stumbled on this statement in one of the very first courses I taught, and a lot of people in the room I could tell they reacted a little bit negatively to it. Some of them almost bristled at it. I said, the number one thing you're doing is running a small business. the number two thing you're doing is installing tile.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my gosh, but I'm in it for the art. It's like, yeah, I was too. That's what I loved about tile. It was an equal balance of art and science and construction background, and the satisfaction of a job well done when you get to look at it finished and you're like, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
did that. Look at, and all that. That's great. But the number one thing you do when you're in business for yourself is you are running a small business.
Yep.
Again, it happens to be tile or flooring or whatever that trade is, that craft you do. So the number two thing you do is install the tile. So as long as you go into it that way, because where this all came from, Kyle, is so many people that were attending the workshop were like, man, this is so much to keep track of. And really, I need to
Yeah.
have these spreadsheets. And, I got to look at Kyle's Floor Academy and make certain I account for all of these expenses, indirect and direct. And it's like, well, yeah, you're running a small business, and this is how you do it. This is how successful business people run businesses. So yours just happens to be in tile
Yep.
or in flooring. So yeah, think about that. You could apply a lot of the principles, the 7 principles of a small business to. It doesn't even have to be in the flooring industry, does it?
Nope.
You could have dogs. You could have a nail salon. You could have a tanning booth. You could run a snow cone trailer. I don't care what you do. There's the 7 principles of running a small business, and you need to apply them if you want to be successful and have a future in it, not just be around for a couple of years and then you didn't make it. So
Well, and
I think
I think the biggest thing is, and I don't know that I get hate for it, but I'm sure there's people that hate when I say this. If you don't want to do the work to run a profitable business and understand how to actually do it, there's plenty of companies to hire you and be an employee at. If you just want to install, there's plenty of companies that'll pay you good money. Don't tell me there aren't. I know there's lots of crap companies that won't pay you what you deserve, but there are companies that will pay you what you deserve, and you can do very well just being. If you just want to be an installer, you can do that. But don't tell me that you have your own company and then say I'm just an installer, because you're not. But if you're not going to do the work, then why are you doing it? Like, I get wanting to own a job. That's cool with me. You can own a job, but you can own it profitably and be efficient and understand that you do more than just installs. If you just want to install, go find somebody to
yeah.
work for. There's somebody that'll take care of you. They'll give you benefits. They'll pay you well. They'll get you a company truck. They'll provide you a cell phone. There's somebody that'll do that. I know a couple of companies off the top of my head that are pretty much always hiring and will set you up. In fact, one of them even has on-site housing to help get somebody established in their area. Because they'll take somebody. They'll find a way to make it work if it's a really good fit. And so if you're
But there's no,
unhappy running a business, stop doing it.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that is the bottom line. But there are plenty of people, and I was one of them. The best part of my job was actually installing the tile and looking and creative and looking at the finished product and having pride in that. There's nothing wrong with that. But
Nope.
for many years, when you're a small business, you are going to be the chief cook and bottle washer, as it used to be said, or the juggler. You're going to be juggling a lot of different balls, keeping them all in the air. But I know of a couple of installers who have worked their way through that time period, and they have gotten to the point where they looked at their resources that they had and realized they needed other resources that gave them the ability to hire now. They had
Yeah.
such a profitability, and their income was so great that they were generating enough income and enough capital that they could hire people to do the other business part that they. And let's face it, not everybody is skilled at every aspect of running a business,
Correct.
and so you have to be able to recognize that eventually and say, what are the resources I have available? What are the ones I'm going to outsource? Which ones will I hire in? Because I'm really just not that good at that. And you can eventually. And as I said, I know a couple of fellows who are back to now pretty much going out on a job site every day.
Mm-hmm.
They've got other that are helping them run the business and so forth. And then they get to do the part that they felt was the fun part, which
Yep.
was the install. So sure, you can
Hi,
get yourself.
you can hire people to do the things you hate, And I think a lot of people get it confused that just because you own the business means you have to be the one that runs and operates the business. No, you don't. You can hire somebody that enjoys running and operating a business and can manage it very well and responsibly for you, and you can check in with them. But you can go back to being the guy in the field if you want to be. I just read some post today about, a guy works for a pizza shop and the guy's a rags to riches story of this owner operator that opened this pizza shop, and he still goes out and delivers the pizzas, and nobody knows he's the owner. They just think he's some immigrant guy that's, hustling to make money. But he loves being out delivering the pizzas. So that's what he does.
Yeah. Think about it on a large scale. Do you think the Schluter brothers that own Schluter now, Schluter Systems, they can't run it all on their own? They had to get a lot of resources, a lot of talent in there to help them run the business. And the stuff that they chose to run was the part that they excelled at. They said, I'm really good at this. Hey, brother, what are you really good? Well, I'm really good at that. And it's like, yeah, let's do those parts and let's hire other people that we can trust and who are competent to run these other parts. And then the business runs. So yeah, you will, if you want that for yourself. Other people are, small and they want to just work for themselves, by themselves, and be a small shop. That's great. That's great as long as you can do these other things. But if you can't, you're going to have to take a look at that and say, how am I going to handle this? If there's things I'm not good at or I don't like, whatever that is, they still need to be they got to get done.
Mm-hmm.
They have. What is that going to look like if it isn't you? So that's the good questions. When people say, well, is this course about growing your business? It's like, well, growing in which way? Are you talking about how much work you have and you accomplish, or how many employees you have? That could be one growth, but it could be just growth into a different segment of work you're currently doing that is more profitable or is more satisfying for you, or whatever it happens to be. So there's different growth. So yeah, you could say that these courses and everything you offer is about growth. But let's not just pigeonhole growth as I'm getting big. I'm a big old shop now. That could be your definition of growth, but it doesn't necessarily have to.
I agree. There's a lot of different ways to look at it. So where you can go find how you want to grow and identify that, and then go find the skills that'll help you get there. I think that's a great place to leave it off. Again, don't forget to check out the spreadsheet, since we're talking about being able to present numbers and know your overhead and how to present. Since you have to present value, you might as well get paid what you're worth. So that's flooracademypod.com/files in the business budgeting worksheet. We got other things to check out over at Floor Academy Pod, including the shop. Andy said it, not me for once. Profit is not a dirty word. And you can go pick up a hoodie or a shirt with that on it. And don't wear it to your bids. I'd love for you to, but don't wear it to your bids. But wear it out and about to like different, contractor events and shows and stuff like that. That's a more appropriate place. Let your peers know that they can make profit too. But wearing it in front of a homeowner may not be the best idea. Then they may think you are overpriced, even though you're not. You can help support the show at patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping me to continue getting this content out to your wonderful ear holes. And thank you to all the sponsors again. We've got, what do we got? Listeners, it's nearing that time again. Time to remind you that the International Surface event is returning to Las Vegas, January 28th and 30th, 2025. Mark your calendars now. I bet you that this is what Andy doesn't want to hear about, to be honest. He's like, oh man, it's only 6 months away. Shoot, I got to get a booth planned and an agenda planned. I didn't have that on my forecast yet. But Floor Academy podcast listeners will have the opportunity to register for free once registration opens in September using the promo code Kyle. Come on, folks. It's not hard. It's my name. It's 4 letters, KYLE. Get your free registration in. You can't forget it. Whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within our industry, attending TICE is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. You can also learn about the newest and industry-leading products coming to market. Stay up to date with the International Surfaces event page on Facebook or online at intl-surfaces.com. surfaceevent.com. Lastly, we got a quick word here from Ardex. Ardex, providing innovative solutions for the construction industry for 75 years. From our game-changing tile and stone installation products to our easy-to-install TLT shower systems, we've got you covered. Our industry-leading moisture control products like Ardex VB100 ensure a solid foundation for our best-in-class line of self-leveling underlayments, and subfloor preparation products like Ardex Feather Finish and Ardex Feather Finish XF. At Ardex, we are building tomorrow. To learn more, visit www.ardexamericas.com today. Links for everybody in the show notes. Don't miss out on Surfaces. It really is a great event to go and network with your peers, find out what's coming in the industry. The last thing I would want to do is show up to a prospective client's house and them start asking me questions about a new product on the market. I don't know anything about it. And then I'm scrambling. I'd rather know what's coming my way. And Tice and Coverings are both great events to stay ahead of the curve and know what's going to be coming your way in the next year, couple of years. So that's my plug for, why you need to go to Tice. And if you use the spreadsheet that I've recommended twice now, you can build in the cost of attending events into your budget here and your overhead, and then it's just part of your regular bid, and you don't have to be like, oh man, where am I going to come up with the money? You've already figured out a yearly salary. You've put in that you need $2,500 for hotel and airfare and all of that, and food and whatnot. It's already built in. So when it comes around, the money's sitting in the bank account ready to go. There's no excuse when you're running this business that you're managing to not be able to do stuff like this. So that's it for me. Andy, if somebody wants to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me at schluter.com and search for me. But yeah, I'm Acker at schluter.com. But if you can't remember that, Andy Acker, so AACKER at schluter.com. That's me. You could email me if you have any questions or comments. If you know your local rep, I would reach out to them if you're interested in attending one of our 2-day Mind Your Business classes. If you're on this podcast, you're into learning about running businesses. That's obviously why you're here, because of Kyle's efforts and the excellent job he does with coaching and all that. So certainly, if you want to get a hold of me, Acker at schluter.com, and I'll direct you to your local rep. But if you do know your local rep, let them know you want to attend. That's how you end up going. But yeah. And I'll see you at Surfaces or Coverings or Total Solutions Plus or any of these places that I run into Kyle. So
yeah, it's great to get out and see everybody and learn. We talked about being able to talk to contractors from different areas. So it's game changing to get out of your comfort zone, get out of your local area, see what else is going on. I appreciate it. If you want to find Andy because you haven't met him, you can go meet him on YouTube. If you go to the Schluter channel, he's in tons of their videos. And so you can go hang out with Andy and get some education on some Schluter products over there. We'll get a quick plug in for the YouTube channel. I don't know that enough people know about that resource and access it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we are over 400 installation videos and then little tips and tricks and stuff. And yeah, you can catch me still in front of the camera. Those are all older. I've got very little gray hair in those compared to now, but yeah, they're still out there, and some of them are still the favorites that people like to watch, like the beginning to finish shower installation. That's always been one of the top 5 popular ones, and even the old one that looks like something from This Old House or something, where it's a steady cam and people are actually talking on camera and actually doing the work right in front of you. So yeah, there's tons of stuff like that. So thanks for the plug on that, Kyle.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining us. I very much appreciate it. And folks, we will catch you next week.